Well, guys, Dwayne and Jeff haven't fired me yet, so we are back for a fourth installment of the gameplay segment of playing from the tips. Last week we talked about approach shots. It's a very broad topic. There's a lot involved, tough to kind of explain in a condensed amount of time. So we're gonna narrow the focus here and just talk about one specific type of shot that hopefully you can use in your rounds if you aren't already. So as you can see on screen, I've set up a little practice course that has a fairway that ends at about 320 yards and a fairway that ends at about 303 yards. And the idea here is that you have a fairway that's going to stop too soon, essentially. Your ball's going to roll through into either the rough or the water or what have you, but perhaps your 2-wood or your 3-wood, whatever you have in your bag, isn't quite as far down as you'd like to be. So there's your example. Okay, that holds at about 320 at the edge. Well, if it's 303, is it really going to stop? Depending on your settings of the course, yes, maybe, but we're removing all that for here. So, running into the rough, what do? If you'll remember back to the first episode, we talked about draw and fade and how to moderate distance. You can do the same thing with your driver. I'm using that windmill that I placed out there as an aim point, and I'm trying to hit a draw essentially kind of towards where my eyes are. And as you can see, it actually holds the fairway. So let's take a look at a couple of in-game examples that I've recorded a couple weeks ago, I believe. So it's 6-hole at Cypress Dunes here, and what you're seeing is me just playing. I'm kind of checking where my landing area is. I'm going to have to look at how much elevation there is. There you go. You'll see the overhead as we talked about in the second episode of this. And I'm struggling with what to do because that's a narrow landing area. And right now, I'm picking my aim point. When you see me kind of zooming in and out real quick, it's because I'm looking at my eyes on the screen and below that, and then following it as the scout cam is going out. And we'll ignore the fact that Petty made the egregious mistake of not flattening that tee box, and see if this one ends up good, which I believe it does since I recorded it. It better. Yeah, here we go. Right into the fairway. If I would have hit a full driver there, 100% that would have run out, and 3-wood in those conditions from that distance, or 2-wood, would not have been ideal. Here's one I took from Escobar's Hideaway in the PGA 2 weeks ago, I believe. So not only are we contending with elevation here, there's an extremely narrow landing area, and there's a crosswind. So I like to play a draw because I've got the avatar player in the game to use as a point of reference. And this kind of sets up pretty well for it, actually, because I think a driver without that crosswind would maybe have even gone too far. So that wind is going to take a little bit off of it as well. And you can see my aim point here. If I hit it without any wind, I'd probably end up in that little bunker. But with the wind helping to push it back and take a little distance off, it works out just about perfectly. So again, this is a very simple shot, something that you have to practice to get used to. But there are a lot of examples when you're playing your rounds of times when you don't want the ball to go the entire distance of a driver flight and roll, but you've probably got 20 to 25 yards that you could hit it further than your 2-wood would go. I use this shot all the time. There are a lot of things that'll make it a little more difficult, but key points to remember is you gotta select your aim point, right? I try to do that visually out in the distance. It's a tree. That's why I put that giant windmill there, just as an example to show kind of how I'm lining up a shot. If there isn't, you'll see me or anyone that uses this doing a lot of zooming in and out with the scout cam to follow the aim point from, for me at least, the bill of the cap or the sunglasses or eyes. You have to factor in the winds as you do with any shot. That second example we looked at from Escobar's Hideaway, the wind played a factor in that one for sure, and it really helped me. It was just a good setup for that shot in particular. And another thing you need to be aware of is the more that you try to work the ball either direction, you need to account for a usual push or a pull. So if you're a player that is used to hitting a pretty decent push or pull, it's going to be exaggerated when you hit this. So you need to aim to account for that. Again, this is something that you have to practice at least a few times to get the hang of, but it can be really, really useful on certain holes depending on the course setup. So that's episode 4 of the gameplay portion, playing with the tips. Certainly hope you all enjoy and this can be a little help, and who knows, we might be back again next week. See ya.